Hello again everyone, and welcome to the Hopoo Games Dev Thoughts number 27, our first video since the release of Survivors of the Void. We have lots of dev thoughts to share with you today, but before we get started, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has played the expansion and made it a very successful launch. More on that later when I conduct a Q&A session with the Hopoo Games co-founders Duncan and Paul, so stick around for that. We also have a console release update, a merchandise update, and a patch update for you. So let's get started. First up, the console release update. Since the PC release of Survivors of the Void, we have been busy ironing out all the bugs and balance changes needed to get the expansion, and Risk of Rain 2 as a whole, up to the best standard. In order to release the console version simultaneously to the same standard, including all the improvements we've already made to the PC version, we have made the decision to move the console release to later this year in early Q4. This was not an easy choice to make, however we want to ensure your experience playing Risk of Rain 2 is the same regardless of the platform you choose, and moving the date will allow us to deliver the game on all console platforms in the state you deserve. We know this will be disappointing news for some of you, however, we know that in the long run, this is the best move to make for the future of the game. Our next update is regarding Hopoo Games merchandise. You may have seen on Twitter and Discord a couple of months ago that I asked you what you'd like to see as far as that merchandise is concerned, and I've taken that feedback and we are well on our way to opening a merch store for you. We've secured a partner to bring this merch to you and we're finalising designs right now, but don't worry, we will absolutely let you know when we're ready to open. I'm very excited to make this merch available to you, especially a long demanded plush that is in the works. This next update is about the next patch for Survivors of the Void. We've already updated Survivors of the Void twice since release, and we're planning on at least one more bug fix patch before we consider Survivors of the Void completed on PC. This patch mainly focuses on bugs, so there won't be much in the way of balance or content changes this time. However, one change we've made is to recolour any ally Void creatures on your team to make them easier to identify in the chaos of combat. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone who's taken the time to report any gameplay or bug issues to us over the last couple of months. This is incredibly valuable information for us to keep improving the game, and we really appreciate it. There is still time to report any bugs you may have experienced since the last patch. Let us know by joining our Discord and reporting them in the Bug Reports channel. The link is down in the comments. And now, on to the main event, a Q&A session with the Hopoo Games co-founders Duncan and Paul, using questions straight from the community. Did your question make the cut? Let's find out. Just quickly before we start, my webcam is a little glitchy at times, which we couldn't fix before filming, but let's face it, you're not here to see me, so let's just pretend it doesn't happen. Over to me. Right, let's get started then. Thank you very much for taking the time. We'll just jump straight into the questions. The first one, which is a very, very popular question, but I've chosen this one specifically from not the most creative username, but on Discord, is how are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Good.
Tired.
Excellent.
I don't know. We got like an eye twitch, but otherwise pretty good.
The next question from John Rocket on Twitter was, how do you feel after releasing Survivors of the Void? It almost reached Raw 2's most concurrent players on the day of release. Did this exceed expectation or fall short?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, very good. I think we didn't really expect to hit the kind of peak numbers that we did. I think on launch it was like 70,000, and this one was like 200 less than our max. So, and it's been like a year and a half, so super happy about that. And then just glad to see everyone playing it finally, who worked on it for like over a year. So it was good to see players get to dive in and kind of enjoy everything. So it's been good.
Yeah, I would say I felt pretty relieved also that it came out, just because it was in development for so long. I think we were starting to get a little antsy, wanting to just really get it out there and start getting feedback and have eyes on it. So I felt a lot of relief when it came out.
And this question's from Flabbergasted Mega B on Discord. What was been the most surprising part of the reception for the DLC for the dev team? Is there anything in particular that took you off guard in regards to the amount of feedback it received, either positive or negative?
Yeah, let me think about it.
It's a good question.
I think because the Voidling boss fight was so hot in development, I was happy to see that it seemed to just work. Just because we ran into a lot of problems, like while we were developing it, and we had like some bugs that weren't 100% sure were patched out yet. And so I guess this is the opposite. I was happily surprised to see no discussion about it, because that was like a good thing, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a big piece of content that we worked on and worked through quite a bit. So that's pretty cool.
I think Simulacrum was also one that we knew internally played a lot better than it initially sounds. And so I think we weren't super surprised, but we were kind of expecting people to enjoy it a little bit more than what it kind of sounds like on the tin.
Cool.
I don't know if I answered the question. I think I want to answer like the opposite of the question, but
yeah. What about negative? Was there anything that you think I wasn't expecting people to negatively react to that? That people did?
Patch notes.
Oh, we'll cover the patch notes in a bit. Don't worry.
Does it come back later?
Oh yeah, it's coming back later. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that was the biggest one actually.
That was the one that's a surprise. Where I was like,
yeah, which is kind of a good spot to be, because if it was like the update wasn't fun or wasn't cool or wasn't worth it, that'd be a lot more terrifying. But if it's like, where's the patch notes? It's like, okay, I can deal with that. So yeah.
Cool. What was this is from Duckmouth on Discord. What was the hardest part of developing the DLC? Coming up with new characters, areas, lore, enemies, etc. What was the hardest?
So I would say the hardest was when we started doing the Void stage and the Void boss. Everything was pretty seamless up until then. I think we struggled a lot in terms of how does this compare to the moon. I think that took a long time to figure out that this shouldn't be the alternate to the moon. It's just something else entirely. But the comparisons kept coming back, and for us, the moon and Mithrix and all that was something we planned from the very beginning. This Void alternate ending is not something we planned for initially. And so I think we got stuck in a lot of places just because we never really designed for there to be two options. And so like we spun our wheels for a while trying to figure out how do we make this option the interesting one. And I think what we landed on was, hey, the Void stuff is just way harder. This is just like if you want to prove that you could. It's kind of the unfair secret boss in some ways, and then Mithrix is like the normal standard boss for the game. And then it started falling into place after that.
Yeah, of the whole like year plus development, I'd say the first 8 months or something was like more items, more characters, more stages, all the stuff that we kind of had mastered over the last, I don't know, 3-4 plus years. So the Void Lane and the Void stage was definitely a new chunk of things to learn. So that's cool.
And following on from that, this question's from Sammy on Discord. What piece of content did you have the most fun developing in the expansion?
Fun.
Probably.
We didn't have any fun.
I remember fun.
I think the Railgunner for me was super interesting, because we'd always talked about like, oh, like how can we do this? How can we make it work in 3D? And I think once we got the like weak point system in, and I found myself just like coming in the morning and playing that for a while, I was like, oh, this will be good. So I think that was the most fun thing to kind of get into the game, for me at least.
I think for me, we pretty much did all the items at once. And that was probably like the most enjoyable set of content, because they were all kind of bite-sized things. But then as a whole, they really impacted like the quality of the run. Just seeing new items come out of chests or seeing new items in the multi-shops. That was always fun, just because it refreshed the same content that we've been looking at for a very long time. That and the kind of just standard enemies that are in the older maps were fun to see too. The blind pest, I would say, was the most enjoyable monster to make, just because it's a little bit different. It's got kind of a fun rig, so we could do fun animations. And it was nice that it wasn't just wisps up in the air for once. It was nice to have something else up there, and they're kind of fun to kill. I would say I enjoyed that part too.
Cool. This question's from Brooms on Discord. I really love the Simulacrum game mode. What went into its development? What was your original idea for it? What were some challenges you encountered while making it, balance or otherwise?
That's a loaded question potentially, but I think that, ever since I would say Risk 1, there's been an idea of having some kind of alternate game mode that kind of distilled it down into not finding the teleporter and not doing this kind of stuff. So I think that a wave-based game mode made a ton of sense, and I think that we joked about it like in the beginning and midway through, and then we spent a couple weeks on it, and turned out not a lot better than expected, but it actually fit really well and it made sense, and like the pick 3 was pretty cool. So I think that for a certain player it's like a preferred way to play, so I think that turned out really well. It's not just like some small alternate little game mode.
If you go back to our first Kickstarter, you'll see that I think it was a stretch goal was to do arena mode, and we ended up not doing it. We did something else instead. I think we did the chef and loader update or something.
Yep.
Because when we were trying it, it just wasn't very fun, and so we've been talking about arena mode for like
10 years,
almost a decade now. Yeah, and so it was fun to actually be able to execute on it, and I think we just had like the tools and skill set to actually make it enjoyable. It wasn't just like a bunch of things in a pit. There was like the pick 3, like Paul mentioned, the different wave types, I think helped too. We also have just a lot of players playing the game for a really long time. And I think a lot of people just want to see something different. They just don't want to go through the runs again. They just don't want to fight Mithrix again. It's just like little kind of bite-sized version of Risk Rain, please. And as developers, we've definitely played the game a lot. And so it's kind of enjoyable internally too, to be able to just play something different when we were playtesting, just because we've played 5,000 hours of Risk Rain 2 or whatever. And so we knew, because we enjoyed it, there's people in similar shoes that have played the game for a while, just kind of want to play like a lighter version of it. Yeah.
Cool. This question's from Zybran on Reddit. Who played the biggest role in designing Railgunner? How long did it take? How do you feel she turned out? I feel she's one of the best design characters and one of my new favorites.
Who, as in who on the team?
Yeah, so who did it? Who's responsible?
I don't think any survivor is the responsibility of one person. I would say everyone involved helped design the Railgunner. In terms of like championing it, it kind of wrote itself for a while. We knew the scope was going to be the big selling point. We also talked about the sniper from the first game, and their gimmick was trying to get like the biggest shot possible with like multiplicative like multipliers all together. And so we kind of took that aspect of it and ran with it. And that's why we have the weak points, we have the reload, we have the supercharge. And so if you have like the most perfect shot ever, you have all these multipliers and they all multiply together. That was kind of the core of the design.
Yeah. I think the cool thing about being on a small team is, I was trying to think while Duncan was answering that, is like, I think everyone touched like some part of the Railgunner's design at some point. Obviously some people are doing larger chunks of it or bigger systems or more design, but there's not enough people in the company to have like, this guy does this and this and this. It's like, let's all make it until it's fun, and then we'll kind of ship it. So it's been it worked out really well on the Railgunner.
Excellent. Very similar question here from Furion on Twitter. What were your thoughts when creating the Void Fiend? Did you plan on him looking like the picture of the commando in the credits? At what point did you begin development on them? And who came up with the idea to make them a meter-based character, etc.?
So Void Fiend was not at all related to the credits concept art. It just happens to coincidentally look similar. I think we just came to the same conclusion twice. It's like corrupted commando, that'd be cool. We knew we wanted the second character to be Void based, because it is the Void expansion. We had a concept art from one of our artists who did like a cool corrupted commando thing. We're like, that looks cool, let's do that. Originally, Void Fiend, the biggest change for Void Fiend during development was at the beginning, the meter, if you filled it out, you would instantly die. And when you died, you would become corrupted by the void. So the idea was you would flirt with it until you got close, and you get stronger as it goes up. But if you ever hit 100%, you instantly died. And we had a lot of iteration on that design. So like your primary would start exploding, and it would shoot like 3 shots, and it was like automatic, and it was crazy. And then if you hit 100%, you would become fully corrupted, and you would have like this insane void guy running around. Turned out to be not fun. It was more fun on paper than in reality. It wasn't very enjoyable to be at 95%, and then you got hit once, then you instantly die. It's like, all right, well, it's not very fun. That's when we did the stance switching. Stance switching was something we've tried a lot in the past. The first time we tried it was the Huntress in Risk 1. She had a stance switching thing at the time. So we've been sort of poking at it ever since. I think this was just, again, another one of those things where we had the idea for a very long time, and we just didn't know how to execute on it until now. But the character came together a lot faster once we ditched the meter instantly killing you thing.
Yeah, and early on too, it was more underwater themed, I would say, than it turned out. I think very early on it was more about like kind of following the pattern of like that deep sea thing. So there was like a lot more
wetness.
Yeah, it was just like deep sea creature. It was more of the beginning, and then it turned kind of into what it was. And I think the like tagline in the internal design doc that we had was like, this character, this survivor, is very unwell. And I think that was like a good way to put it, of like, you can kind of tell like from his little shaking animations and stuff like that, you could tell it's like something's going on here. So I think that turned out really well.
Awesome. This question's from Sheena on Discord. What is something that you are currently not happy with in its current state?
We're talking about in the game?
yeah, in the world in
not just
general.
Like globally. All right. I would say I never have liked the Celestine elites. They're not, I think, as clear as like Malachite. And they're also pretty expensive from like a performance standpoint. It's like a big bubble, and like everything's visible, and it's kind of like, it's pretty messy. It's not a very elegant piece of content, I would say.
How about you, Paul?
I would say it's not something that I don't like, but I wish there was more stuff about the lunar stuff and the newt and the shop and all that stuff. I think that is a pretty cool space that we've always kind of talked about expanding during development, but never really had the time or like the direct idea of what that would be. So I think that's something that was like not like left out, but I think that could be like a bigger part of it, is what I'll say.
I like how
yeah, like some, just like why is it there, like all that kind of stuff is would be cool to expand on.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I thought you were avoiding using the word expanding upon it.
No.
Moving swiftly along. The next question is from Inuweg on Reddit. Are there any secrets or Easter eggs in the game that you have yet to appear online in any screenshots or videos that you're waiting for players to find?
I am not sure, but I know that the day we launched the update, we had like an internal tally of like, how long will it take to find this secret and this secret? And it was all kind of blown out like pretty much the first day. So I don't think so. I think
not like cool ones. I would say like a lot of times the logbook entries have some random relevancy. Like it might have a date that's like the day we moved in here or some like random crap like that, but nobody would really be able to tell that was an Easter egg except us.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff like that's like little nods to each other or people who worked on the game and stuff like that, but not like big,
Cool.
There's no like
or anything.
yeah, there's no. I saw some recent Easter eggs that were pretty big, but nothing like that.
Yeah, we haven't really had the chance to do a lot of Easter eggs, actually, just because our timelines have been so tight. It's pretty much, it's something you do when you have the downtime to do it. And even like during early access, it's just been so busy. It would feel bad, I think, if somebody was working on an Easter egg and we're like, but we need to
We need the
boss though,
Yeah.
So yeah, we haven't really had many Easter eggs in general, I think, for the game.
Cool. The next question is from Charlotte Rose, who is one of our hard-working Discord moderators. What are the team's thoughts, if any, on the state of power creep in the game? Items and characters, and in the expansion, some enemies appear to be consistently ramping up their power level, leaving a handful of older content in the past. Characters like Railgunner, Loader, or even Acrid completely blow others like Huntress out of the water in a lot of ways. And items like Raincoat, RIP, old Raincoat, and Lost Seers are incredibly powerful compared to anything we've had before. So yeah, power creep.
So I would say two things. I don't want to diminish their experience, but like, are they actually weaker though? Like some of the older items are boring, or maybe more stock. I would argue that the newer ones are more conditional and aren't necessarily stronger. I would say there is definitely some standouts for survivors though, like we all know Loader's like a plate broken, right? Like it's just a complete busted. And I think that leads into the second point, which is this is a game you just play for fun. It is not a competitive game. It is not a ranked game. And so the most important thing is our characters balanced enough to still be fun. Our items balanced enough that they're still fun to get. And I would say the answer to that is yes. I know some people also like playing characters that are harder to play, or some people like playing characters that aren't commonly played. Making them all equally the same may be not beneficial to making the game fun. I think it's fun that some items are better than others too, just so you get those peaks. I think it's also fine some items are worse than others, so you get those lows from like, you get a triple shop and they're all the item you don't want. I'm not gonna name any so people don't quote me, but like, I think those are the kind of moments that you remember.
Yep.
And I think it'd be lame if they were all like, you were kind of like pretty good every single time, like you open a chest and every survivor is pretty good. You can play any of them, doesn't really matter,
Yeah, to expand on that, that's something that we've always talked about since even like Risk 1. It's just like we could balance the game to be kind of completely like this character, on paper is as good as this character or this survivor, and each item is like equally weighted, but being a super replayable game and a game that people have put hundreds or thousands of hours into feels good to us, because that means that actually, playing again, it is fun and you get a different experience each time. And having kind of the things that are set up in a way that, something could be better than something else is part of the design of it. So
I think also in the future, when we make new games, if balance is important to the fun of the game, we should be investing in some telemetry, because we don't actually have any data in terms of like, does Huntress lose the most runs percentage-wise? I don't know. Maybe she just feels bad to play. Maybe she's boring. I don't know if those claims are actually true, because we don't have any data about it. And the survivors are different enough they can't really just compare them on paper.
Cool. Next question's from $1 Million Mistake on Reddit. Are you happy with the game's overall difficulty? And if not, where would you make changes? Is early game too hard or too easy? Late game, certain boss fights?
I would say that because we play the game so much, we just get incrementally better. And so we always feel like the game's a little bit easier than it should be. but then occasionally you see somebody playing the game for the first time and they just get like
two shot,
or they just can't get past the first couple stages. And you're like, oh man, can't really just incrementally keep making it harder. The difficulty settings are there for a reason as well. I know some people just like to play on the hardest one because they think that's the only way. But if you enjoy the game more at the lower difficulties, play the lower difficulties. Experience the same. I would say there's enough of a range of choices that you can kind of tailor the game to the way you want to play it. I think the question was, am I happy? I was like, yeah, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah. I think it's pretty solid.
So the short answer is skill issue.
Not skill. I don't know if they're saying it's too hard or too easy.
I'd say.
If it's too hard, you can make it easier. And if it's too easy, you can make it.
I might cut that out.
I'll keep it on.
You gotta leave that in. Yeah.
The next question is from Literally Europe on Discord. When are you nerfing Huntress? Brackets, will there be any more balance patches for the DLC?
Probably not. Don't quote me on that though, but like things feel pretty good.
Are we gonna buff Huntress?
We're gonna change the game.
When are you gonna nerf Huntress?
I don't, we have more patches planned for fixes and crashes and stuff, but I don't think there's a ton of, if any, balance stuff in there. So probably not.
I think it's balanced enough that it's fun.
Yeah. We just want to make sure everyone can play the game at this point. New systems, hardware, storefronts, et cetera. So that's the goal.
And next one is from Ansuf on Reddit. Do you feel you overuse the stand here in the circle mechanic? It's in the simulacrum, it's on the void stage, it's in the void fields, every teleporter and final stage before you fight Mithrix. There has to be something better. Yes,
I agree. It is our fallback of like, what if you stood in a circle? As we talk about that all the time. I definitely agree that we're overdoing it. But it's also like baseline interesting enough that it's kind of like, maybe you stand in a circle. I don't know.
I agree. I think that we did, we obviously leaned on that as a mechanic, but I think the best iteration of it is actually the most recent one, which is on the void stage, because of the way we designed those monsters and because of the way that their death effects change actually standing in that, like when the void, death bubble is homing toward you and you're supposed to be in that bubble, that's a little more exciting. So I think yes is the short answer, but also I'm really happy with the void stage version of it. So
I also know that like the initial implementation of stand and circle, the teleporter, we designed that in Risk 2 because we found that players just like to spread out. It's actually the most efficient way to play the game is to just be spread out. And so we needed a reason for players to come together so you can see everyone else you're playing with in multiplayer. And so that reason also kind of makes the stand-in circle nice, just so for a moment, everyone's doing the same thing. I think it's also not too obtrusive of an ask. We're not asking you to play basketball in the middle of the void stage, it's like just stand in the circle. We're not asking too much. I think you could definitely go too far towards mechanics that feel clever as a designer. And then as a player, you're like, I just want to shoot stuff and kill monsters. And so I think that's why we typically fall back to stand and circle. I think it's like a nice middle ground between like slight limitations, but you're still playing the game.
This next question is from Wernher on Twitter. I saw a video about cut content, and there were abilities for a Warden character in the files, with one ability sharing the same icon as the Railgunner. Was this an early concept for Railgunner or something planned for a future release?
So the Warden was something that we had help with from a partner for a new Survivor all the way back at Skills 2.0, I want to say. Or no, it was the accurate one. It was Hidden Realms, I think.
It's been a while.
It was a character that we cut because it didn't play very well. I don't know why it would share an icon. That might just be an an oopsie daisy. It was like a robot character that had little like batons and like hit people, and like a bar would fill up. It was just something we were trying.
It was a classic, like, sounds super fun on paper, and then we like got it implemented and set up, and it was like, it's cool, but
got it.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun.
Yeah.
And I think during early access, we had our roadmap a little too aggressive for our team size. And so we had to get outside help. So all of early access after the first update has had some help outside of the studio. And so at the time we were like, if we could lean on someone for a survivor, what would it look like? And that was kind of an experiment. I don't know why it's in the game. I thought we removed the files. So
I think we generally like leaving stuff in for like modding and, giving people templates for like, this is how certain things are created. So that's always nice. But yeah, it does lead to these like, hey, I saw this thing, it was cool. Why isn't it in there?
Yeah.
That's generally the reason, is like, it's valuable to someone. So
this next one's a very similar question, which will have a similar answer, but I think the difference here is that a lot of these next things that are going to get mentioned were in a pretty complete state. So this one's from Freezy on Discord. While messing around with console commands, I found several cut pieces of content. Why were Assassin 2, Mega Construct, Archwisp, and Ancient Wisp cut, especially considering that Assassin 2 and Mega Construct have fully complete AI and functionality, and the Ancient Wisp is a boss from Risk of Rain 1. Also, what was the Assassin character supposed to be like, and will they ever have a chance of coming back?
So I guess in order.
Short answer is that very similar to the last one of like, we just made it, didn't live up to like being perfect or super fun or shippable, so we just didn't finish it. But yeah, you can go into like longer on.
Yeah, I think Assassin 1, that was like the little box guy with the two blades. That was like
pre-early access.
That was the second survivor we ever made ever. We just wanted to see how melee worked, and we're like, man, this is hard, and then we just moved on. Assassin 2 is just named that because Assassin 1 existed. That was a monster type that we cut. Same story. We had other partners working on it, and we couldn't turn it around in time. We didn't want to release the DLC with like meh content in there because everything in there otherwise was so cool. Ancient Wisp, that's the boss one. That was an old boss. We just never got back around to it. At the time, we were still trying to figure out melee characters, and we had Hand D in at the time, and he couldn't fight the flying monsters because he didn't like dash around or anything, and we were just worried that we wouldn't be able to do melee characters if we had too many flyers, so we got the flying boss. Archwisp, that was just like, how much can we get away with reskins was the question with that one. Decided not do that.
The purple one?
Yeah, the purple one. Just because it was a reskinned Greater Wisp.
Yeah.
Felt like it diminished the quality of the Greater Wisp. Instead of being the cool Wisp, he's like the medium Wisp now. Mega Construct, that's the tower one, right? So
I really like that. It's a shame it had got cut or changed.
I like that one too. There was a set of content that we cut because it didn't play well with what the game became. And so for Mega Construct, a lot of it was collision based. And so we don't really have great ways of creating and removing collision all the time. It was a huge collider. And for melee characters, they had to get up there somehow. We also had problems with it dying because we don't really have like you would think of fall over or something. That would imply collision. And then we had to fall over without collision. It looked really janky. And so that one's a lot more subtle as to why we cut it. It was just really hard to get it that last 10%.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the kind of final changes we were making was, let's just make it fly, move on. And the model and the rig for the new, what are they called? Mega Construct?
Z Construct.
Yeah.
Internally, I think it is the super
mega construct or something.
Super Uber Mega Construct, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what the files were.
I like that one.
That turned out a lot easier. We reused the abilities from the other ones. And I think right at the end, Nick had the idea of it moving in kind of steps, which gave it that little special flavor. So it wasn't just like a flying Titan.
Yeah, development has generally been very evolving. I mean, that's just how we do it, we have timelines and schedules and stuff, but that's all fine. We just want to make sure that whatever we put out is quality. So I think that's always going to be like the main reason for something like that.
And to sort of wrap up those two questions, this question's from Sphincter Steve on Discord. What was the hardest to cut from the expansion?
Well, cut content. I would say that the Mega Construct was hard, just because it was cool. Big, tall obelisk. It was different than everything else. It was a little bit defeating to just turn it into a flying cube. I think it was still the right call, just because it is hard to get that last 10% sometimes, depending on the kind of content we're making. And just logistically, I think it would have been a lot harder to get that 10% than it would be to just start over and make a different design.
So the next questions I've already hinted at, which I'll be playing two versions of in the background right now. One which has already been leaked and is on YouTube, and loads of people have already seen it, and one which I don't think is in the file, so I don't think anyone will have seen this other one. From Bluerex on Discord, why did you remove the Voidling cutscene?
Just ran out of time. That was part of it. Just couldn't get it to the quality standard that we want. If we were trying to get it polished in a state where I don't think it was polishable. So we spent a long time on that, like a month. We cut it and then we brought it back. We're like, oh shit, maybe we can put it back in. We didn't have time to do the cutscene to a quality that we were happy, especially because we haven't done many cutscenes in the past. It is not really a strength that we have. We only have two, and but it's kind of like pretty fake the way it's set up. And then the other part of it was we were trying to distinguish the Voidling ending away from the Mithrix ending, because we knew that the Voidling wasn't going to be the same experience as Mithrix, and we wanted to differentiate the two. And so it was another reason to cut it, just to be like, hey, it's kind of like the Lunar Scavengers, you fight them and then it's over. It's not supposed to be the main ending. It's just like a alternate boss fight. That was kind of the hope that we were hinting at by removing the cutscene. Just also, I think because we were running out of time, I didn't really want to like make lore implications that we would have to run with in the future. So I kind of would prefer it just be open-ended. Makes it easier for us,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. And we hinted at this question earlier as well. This is from Parsley on Discord. Who thought skipping patch notes was a good idea?
Well, I would say everybody was on the same page for that.
Yeah.
Because the development of the DLC was so long and difficult, there was also a huge restructuring internally of the way the files are organized. And like our Git history was kind of a bit of a mess because of that. We believed it would be just easier to be like, there isn't much changed, here it is. I would say the mistake that we made was not outlining the set of changes we knew were in there, just because there might be some that weren't in there. We just didn't want to be misleading by having incomplete patch notes. But I think we could have communicated that in the patch notes to be like, there's some stuff in here that's maybe not outlined, but here are like the big points. Just because people became very unsure of what was in the game at all. People started seeing ghosts in terms of like, was this changed? Was that changed? Some of those we weren't even sure. Like that was just the system level changes that we made when we were doing the refactoring.
Yep. And the big ones were like, oh, this thing feels way harder. I can't believe they changed it. It's like, we didn't change it. So we definitely, learned a little bit of a lesson of the patch notes thing. So it is what it is.
Cool. This next question's from Sly God on Twitter. Is there any way to implement limited time events to keep players on their toes and maybe offer skins or new stages through it to test gameplay ideas? So sort of mini updates. Do you see us doing that sort of thing?
We could do a lot of things, but some of the technical implementations have come from supporting multiple platforms. I know that a lot of the systems or kind of fun side things that we design work really well on PC. Some other platforms might not have support for that feature or that style, or like, leaderboards or rolling leaderboards. So I think there's definitely ways to support that, but we have to think about kind of the larger picture of what we can and can't do.
The game is also like pretty easy to cheat stuff in. Like all your save data is local. We don't have like a back end that it pulls down from. And so we couldn't really be like, here's a limited skin. It's like, okay, or you could just change the notepad file and make it a 1 or whatever. And that was also just because at the beginning we knew like, hey, this isn't a competitive game. It's not really about the integrity of your save file. It's just about playing the game and having fun.
I actually got an email a couple days ago from someone. They were like, oh, I was playing Prismatic Trials and it says like, your reward for being top 10% is nothing for right now. And they were like, when is it going to be something? Like, I want my reward. And I was like, oh yeah.
You guys stop cheating. Then you'll get something.
And the next question is from Oni676767 on Reddit. Will Providence ever return, or is he gone forever?
At the moment, he is gone forever. I would hope he doesn't come back, because that'd be kind of lame. I don't know. I don't think he should come back in a sequel anyways. Just because it's kind of like, we already said he wasn't. And so it'd be kind of like going back on our word if we said that. I think there's ways to see him in 3D that isn't necessarily lore accurate. Like we talked briefly in Simulacrum, because it's a simulation. It was like, what if Providence was there as part of the simulation? And they were like, okay, we also just got the final boss. So like, chances
We've got
are
some work to do.
Yeah. So like maybe in that sense, but I wouldn't want it to be like the story where it's like, oh, he's back again.
Surprise.
Because I think that's kind of like, it's kind of moving backwards, I think.
This next question is from a troublemaker called Astronaut Down on Discord, who asks, Coalescence 3 when? ?
You tell me.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong guy.
This next question is my favorite question of the lot, and it's from Soren Lilly on Discord. Why does the team prioritize balance so low in development? I was extremely surprised to see 0 meaningful balance changes to survivors and items in the update. For example, why is Commando such a terrible character? And the update introduced several new imbalances, such as Collapse being BS on enemies and the Simulacrum being a hot mess on Monsoon. Why do these things not get addressed for the people who treat the game more competitively than Drizzle players? Right, over to you guys.
I'll try to unpack that over
answer
time.
Their own question. Yeah.
So I guess first I would say not appreciate the hyperbole in the question there. But I also assume you're a fan of the game. It's coming from a good place. We covered this a little bit briefly prior, but the 2 points would be A, are you sure it's unbalanced? Based on what? And then B, is the balance important for the health of the game? The game still does not have any telemetry. The game has a lot of RNG to it by design, and all the survivors play differently by design. I definitely know people who find the most success with Commando. There are items that are especially good on Commando and aren't as good on other characters. Maybe it's a playstyle thing. Maybe you just don't like playing the Commando. Maybe other characters connect with you better. It's just more intuitive. I would say that, again, the game has to be balanced enough to be fun. I believe that not every game needs balance as its pillar. I think a game like this, which is so RNG dependent, would lose something by being too balanced. I do not think that balance is something that every game should strive for. And so I would say, because we still find the game fun in its current balanced state, I think you can overbalance a game. And we're happy with the way that it is right now.
Great answer. This next question is from Ratbag, who again is one of our hardworking Discord moderators. What are your favorite songs from the game's soundtrack?
My favorite track for a long time was the title track. My current favorite track is the Sulfur Pools track. I did a lot of testing on Sulfur Pools because I like the track on there so much.
I don't know if I can pick like.
He plays with the audio off.
No.
Take that, astronaut down.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've heard so many different versions of the tracks too, like kind of implementing them or putting them in certain states. It's hard to pick one, but
it's kind of hard to remember where it goes too. I don't really know them by like name, really.
Oh, I can't tell you like the actual.
It's more like, oh, it's that song. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't pick one off the top that would be the correct name of it in game.
I like the new teleporter boss. I think it's called something like Having Rained It Was Blood. That's a really good one. I like that one.
Yeah, I talked to Chris a lot about the kind of piano intro and like all the themes that go into the void and the different instruments and sounds. I think that is my favorite section or genre, I guess, internally, is the strangeness of the void tracks. Actually, my favorite track is In the Arena, which Void Fields is the name. So that's my favorite one.
Good one. Yeah.
That's a good track, because when that was the only music in Simulacrum for like the entirety of development, I've probably listened to that song for about 11 hours non-stop. Next question is from Goose on Twitter. How and when did you guys create your gamer tags? What gave you the idea to have the item for all the people on the team?
Gamer tags? I mean, mine's super simple. I just made up Polygoat when it's probably old school RuneScape or like something super old. I just put that in there as like, it's my name, plus I like the animal as a goat. And now some people think it's like the greatest of all time, but I was like 7 or 8 or 9.
He's just into goats.
Yeah.
Really into goats.
Yeah. That's I mean, that's it for me.
My one, I don't really want to like go into the whole story of it.
Just so you made
it. When I was a child, me and my brother would make this face at each other. Okay. And let me see if I can make it without laughing.
I was about to say, please do it.
Okay. So you puff up. That's the face. Okay. And
the world first right here.
And when you make the face, you would make the sound. It would sound like this. It sounds like okay. So that's context 1. Context 2 is I didn't speak English at the time. I only spoke Japanese, and so I didn't know like how to translate that sound into like English characters. And so we were like, it sounds like HOPOO. That's how I would write it in English characters. That was it. That was the story. It was just like
fantastic.
This face we were making, and we didn't know how to like use the characters very well in English, and so we were like, it's technically Hopoo Games.
I ain't saying that on every Dev Thoughts video.
Yeah. Wow, you got some world exclusive content right there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Next question. All right, from Andoran on Reddit. Are there any plans to add more skins and ability options to the current survivors? Very popular question. I think that is one thing that people were very sort of surprised and a little bit disappointed that there wasn't more of that sort of content that people have come to expect out of games these days. Skins, alternate abilities and things like that. Do you think there's plans or any opportunity? Why didn't we do that? I'll expand on that question. Why didn't we do that? And do you think it'll happen in the future?
I think there was a couple, to go to the skins part, there was a couple skins that we did want to include or wanted to add or thought it'd be cute, like, like little Santa Rex or something that, stuff like that is cool, but we never wanted to break the mold of having more skins for one survivor, or having them all be equal, or things like that was kind of one of the limitations. But I don't know, it just never felt like something that was super valuable in terms of something that we wanted to put effort into that was like a selling point, or like, we'd have polls on Discord of like, what are you looking forward to most? And it was always like survivors, bosses, like just kind of the big meaty pieces of content. So that felt more worth our already very tight timelines on, is how I'll say that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say never. I think we talked about skins a lot in development. We were worried if we gave a character 2 skins and everyone else had 1 skin, it would look like favoritism. And we didn't want to do 12 skins or 13 skins. That was one of the reasons. For abilities, I would say the kerfuffle with the 1.0, like the little wrench symbol and
That's
abilities.
True. I don't know if we talk about that much.
Maybe not. I guess for context, for anyone who hasn't been along for our journey, when we were developing, or when I was originally pitching Skills 2.0 to the team, the idea was really simple skill alternatives, and we would never do primaries because those are really important to the feel of the character. That's the original pitch. Over time, we did do some primaries, and it was supposed to be 1 per ability slot. So you'd have an alternate secondary, utility, and special. And so we knew we weren't going to do them all on the release of Skills 2.0. And so we had a system that would automatically place a wrench icon for each secondary, utility, and special if it only had 1. Some characters like Multi had a bunch of primaries and still had 3 wrench icons because he never actually had a secondary or a utility. And so when we released 1.0, we got rid of the wrenches because the goal was each character had 3 skill variants. The wrenches were communicating something different. And so people felt upset that it seemed like we pulled content out or had content planned. I think that was our bad because we weren't really thinking about the wrenches thing, and like the implication of, like in some ways we were promising, hey, these are things that are missing. That's what it said when you hovered it. Our intent was to be like, there's 3 total per. And so like, I think before 1.0, Multi still had 3 wrenches because I think he only had primaries, and the primaries never had wrenches. So it was just like, the whole thing was a mess, and we were like, oh shit, that was, I think, another mistake. And so I think mentally we might have just completely avoided skill variants just to like not have to worry about that.
A bit of a sore spot.
Yeah. I think there's definitely still space for it. Like Artificer comes to mind. Yeah. We super duper originally planned 1 of each element for each slot. That would feel natural to me. Never say never, I guess.
Cool. Next question is from Pomerantz for me, from Reddit. Why did all the items that came with Survivors of the Void not get their own unlock requirements? I feel like having all the items from the start was a kind of boring decision.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot. In certain updates during early access, we had some things that were locked, some things that were unlocked by default, and I think that felt nice. I think what made us slightly nervous was that someone would pay for a DLC, open up the game, and then have to earn everything again. That felt kind of strange to us, as like, you just paid for this thing, and now everything's locked and you have to earn it. So that felt strange. The other big thing with the DLC, since it's like the very beginning of designing it, our goal was that when a player purchased it and they loaded into the game, it felt different, or it felt new in some way, like they weren't just like playing the same game they'd played 1,000 hours before. And that would have been guaranteed to be true if everything that was new was locked. So I think it felt kind of counterintuitive to our design goals to have, purchase the DLC, open it up, commando comes down, and you get like a monster tooth. It's like, well, why'd I just purchase that? So those are the two big things that come to my mind in terms of why we'd lock or didn't lock more content.
This next question is from Kempachi Ramasama on Reddit. Will Captain ever get his full kit in the Hidden Realms? We get shipping request forms and the caffeinator in these areas, which both come from the UES ships, but not Captain's utility and special. I would just like some consistency. Either none of these items, equipment, abilities work in the Hidden Realms, or they all work. For me, the second option seems more fun from a gameplay standpoint, but you guys might have reasons why internally for it not being this way. This question was also summed up by Aspid on Discord by saying, "Why do you hate Captain?"
We don't hate any of the survivors.
One of my favorites.
So I would say, I do agree it should be consistent. I am the one still pushing to keep it that way. So if you want to blame somebody, blame me. I think the original fantasy for Captain used to have like the ship in the sky. The idea was it's an incomplete character without the other part. The ship is part of the character. I think because we don't have more things signaling towards that, it feels kind of like a random thing. I do agree those things shouldn't show up in the Hidden Realms. Kind of slightly amusing that like the cola delivery like is interstellar. But I think it's interesting. I don't know. I feel like the game would lose something if it didn't have that. So hate me if you want, but
don't expect it anytime soon, guys.
Yeah.
This one's from Yuzu on Twitter. This was a very popular question. Who is your favorite survivor?
Favorite to what? Play?
Yeah. Who do you think he was? Yeah. Who's your favorite to play?
I think I like Acrid a lot. It's pretty low key. Just hopping around, pressing buttons.
Yeah, if I'm trying to like turn my brain off and kind of zone out for a while, I think the loader is super fun just to like punch stuff really hard. I think from a design standpoint, I really like Rex, but not the best.
Artificer, maybe if I'm tryharding, would be my favorite. Rex, if I'm trying to not Rex, Acrid, when I'm trying to kind of zone out.
And if I'm trying to win or go really far in the simulacrum, I'd do Captain.
Cool. This question is from Mr. Ufati on Twitter. Is there anything you guys have added in Risk of Rain 2 that you wish you could remove? And if so, why?
We could remove anything, I guess.
Yeah, but I say nothing's stopping you. It's your game.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
There's some things I guess we can't remove because it would be upsetting to players to lose something they had, I suppose. Some of the lunar items that are like a gesture comes to mind is kind of probably would be better if it was just something completely different, but
people would riot.
Yeah, I think it's still a fun item. I think it would be at a loss if we added some significant drawback to it. It's kind of like the loader situation where 101 ways you can make loader worse. It's also going to directly make her feel worse too. And again, because your win rate isn't really directly correlated to the fun you're having with the game, I think we would be striving for a goal that we shouldn't be striving for. Gesture bugs me, I guess.
Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I was every time I see them, oh, I wish that wasn't there. It's not really the case.
Cool. This one's from Dapper Nerd on Reddit. I know you guys are rebuilding the console edition from the ground up to better pair with PC edition. Has there been any thoughts on a potential crossplay between platforms?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously we think about all the stuff we could do or want to do or how the game could be better as a whole. I think the consoles has always been kind of a touchy spot. I think our end goal with the consoles and kind of rebuilding it from the ground up from the PC branch is kind of getting them in parity. I know we've talked a lot about like sim shipping and hoping that the updates come out sooner or faster. We've done a lot of work trying to close that gap of the updates, and I think that's kind of actually hurt us a little bit. I think trying to rush out the updates on consoles or different platforms has kind of made it a worse game on those. And so I think with this, kind of goal or initiative of building it from the ground up is to kind of take our time, do it right, and then have like that kind of, even just like the mental like confidence that someone playing on like, PS4, PS5, whatever, Xbox is going to have the same experience that someone would on PC. It's not like an inferior product or an inferior game is pretty kind of taxing for us to think about. So I think that that's the main goal, is to make sure those are the same. I think if we can kind of nail that, get them in parity, I would say, again, like Duncan said, never say never. I think that obviously there'd be a lot of benefits of having some form of crossplay. And there's some other kind of features that we've looked at specifically for kind of consoles and different platforms that would be fantastic if we have the time. So that's how I'll say that one.
Be cool if we could do it.
Yep, I agree. I think a lot of people agree. So our goal at the end of the day is like to make the best game possible for all platforms or all players. So definitely aiming toward that.
Okay, next question is from It's Kobayashi on Twitter. How is the partnership with Gearbox, and what influence have they had on the creative process, if any, good or bad?
I would say that the work that we've done with Gearbox has been fantastic. I think a lot of our issues or worries that we kind of carried over from Risk 1 were addressed and then some. I think our biggest thing, at least early on, that we liked was like the testing and the QA was pretty huge for us. I think when we did Risk 1, it was terrifying to do updates because we knew so many things would be untested or buggy. And now that we have like a full kind of QA team support, that's been super helpful. And then it kind of allows us to just focus on making the game, which is what we really enjoy. So I think that's been fantastic. As far as design, they kind of knew pretty early on that we were wanting to be in charge of this thing. This was like our baby. We wanted to design it the way that we want to play it, and they were very understanding of that. It's been great.
I don't think they influenced anything. The med kit used to be red, and then they told us it has to be green for legal reasons. That's really about it.
Man, that's pretty light.
Cool. This one is from Polter on Twitter. Strange question, but would you guys ever consider doing a crossover with any other games in the future if given the chance to?
That'd be cool. Not sure if it would be inside of Risk of Rain, mostly because I wouldn't want non-canonical things in the game, unless it was in a context where it was canonical to be non-canonical, like Simacrum or something, But yeah, I think other games are cool. We're inspired by other games. It'd be cool to have a crossover.
Awesome. This question is from Sir Puppet on Twitter. Some of the items from the DLC have inspirations from modded items, specifically Starstorm 2. Is this just a coincidence, or are mods actually an important piece of inspiration for the game's development?
I could talk on that a little bit. So there's kind of two parts to that, I think. I think that we've been very cautious or careful of looking at certain mods or checking out certain things, or, people will email with like, hey, I've got this idea for this amazing character that throws cleavers. It's like, okay, well, I'm probably not going to read that one just in case we do end up creating something in the future. That would be, it just wouldn't feel right. It's like, hey, I designed that. Thanks. Like, let me, have some credit for that. So that's always been kind of our distanced view at it. I know Starstorm specifically has been a huge mod for Risk 1. Haven't looked at Starstorm 2, but I do know the
Coffee
coffee or
That's the one that I knew about.
Yeah.
I would say that one was a coincidence that I think somebody like Nick or something like played and he's like, oh, isn't this exactly the same? I was like, oh shit, I guess it is.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was anything other than the coffee. I think we named it mocha, so it would be less like coffee. I think that one was just similar ideas, like what about a half and half?
Like you move fast and you go like it just kind of made sense. So
about speed. The shuriken used to be half bleed, half crit originally in the design as well. So we had a couple other half and halves. I think the mocha was the only one that survived. But yeah, generally just try to avoid it just because chances are those are really cool ideas and want to do them. And then we also don't want to feel like we're ripping people off or taking away from somebody else's work.
Cool. Next question is from Roadkill Waffle on Twitter. Are there any plans or ideas for a sequel or a follow-up to Deadbolt?
No plans.
Didn't see that coming.
I like the game a lot. I have ideas of what it could be, but we're not actively working on anything, no.
We do internally joke about it, though.
Talk about Deadbolt 2 a lot.
Yeah. This one's from Dank Corpse on Twitter. How far ahead have you planned future DLC? Did the launch of this one and the feedback lead you to rethink how you may implement future DLC?
We only kind of plan for the next thing. Like when we released the base game, we didn't plan for the DLC. And so in the same way, we're sort of just taking it one step at a time. The DLC was also a very large undertaking, so I do feel a little bit of exhaustion at the idea of immediately jumping into like the next big thing. So not internally, not much, no.
Cool. Now this one's actually from me because I'm preempting after this month's Dev Thoughts a big question from our users. So from 17 Uncles on Discord. We found out earlier in this video that the console release has been delayed until early Q4 this year. This is disappointing news for our console fans who are all eagerly awaiting a Q2 release. What are your thoughts and what can you tell us about this delay?
Yeah, kind of touched on this a bit in the previous questions, but I think the overall goal has always been to kind of bring them into parity with the PC. I think we've realized that making the code bases the same and function the same and has taken more time or is taking more time than we thought, and we want to do it properly. I think we could have rushed out, the update or the DLC on the consoles, and it would have been about the same as the previous updates where, it's pretty good. It's not perfect. There's some bugs, some performance issues, things like that. I think while it is probably disappointing to hear that it's going to take longer, I think the overall product and the game itself will benefit from it. So I'm not too worried. I know it's disappointing. It's hard to kind of like take that hit right now, but I think for the entire player base, it's going to be better and worth it.
Yeah, I think we're trying to learn from our experiences, and I think they just need more time in the oven, just so we are actually progressing in terms of the quality we're releasing on console. The game is very tightly coupled to Steam and to PC originally, and so it's just a lot of work to pull it apart. I know it's not what you want to hear, but we're trying.
Yeah, we're trying to do what's best for all players. So
yeah, there's a lot of people working on it every day, so there is progress. I just know there isn't a lot of visibility on it, so it is kind of difficult to follow along. So
yeah, but with that being said, between now and then, we will try to keep you guys, posted and updated, and more on that. So
excellent. And this is the final question and was by far the most popular question. But I've chosen this one because I like this person's username. So Uppity Prince on Discord asked, what is the Hopoo team going to do next?
That's a spicy one.
Yeah, you answer it.
We're working on stuff.
Yeah, that's safe to say. I'd say we're working on stuff. Obviously we're still in the office. We're still doing stuff. I think to touch on Duncan's point, earlier, the DLC was massive. We kind of joked in the very beginning, like, what if we just did as much content as possible? And we're like, oh yeah, that sounds funny. And then we ended up doing all of it, or mostly all of it. So that was pretty exhausting. I think we're not super motivated or ready to dive into that again. But we are generally excited by the things that we're doing every day.
We're working on some cool stuff.
You can elaborate on that, you can not, but we are definitely
working on some cool stuff.
Yeah, we're working on some fun stuff that you'll find out more about
in the future.
In the future.
Excellent answer. Well, that was everything. Is there anything else that you guys want to add before we wrap up the Q&A?
I wasn't ready for that question.
I mean, I'll say thank you to everyone who submitted questions on Reddit and Twitter and all this stuff. We wanted to make it as genuine as possible, so we didn't really get any prep time, so we might be thinking a lot for a lot of these questions, but I think it was the best way to do it in terms of kind of natural reactions to them. So hopefully it turns out good. But yeah, I don't know. Thanks everyone for playing. Thanks for being a fan. Thanks for letting us make games. Pretty cool.
Yeah, hopefully people enjoy this because it's pretty fun.
Yeah, maybe we
I want to do it again.
Maybe.
Yeah, if I can fix my bloody webcam. Thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the video. Thanks to everyone who submitted questions for the Q&A. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought, and I'll see you next time. We can't wait to show you what we got cooking at Hopoo Games. Goodbye for now.